Personality and self-image can have a huge impact on the language learning process, and if you're not aware that this is happening, it could end up being the reason you fail to reach your goals. I remember seeing a video a while ago of someone just going around and talking to people in the street in Spanish, and they seemed so at home. They were making a ton of mistakes, but just brushing them off and laughing, and mid-conversation asking how to say certain things and switching to English for a second before going back. And despite the mistakes, the comments section was filled with native Spanish speakers talking about how great their Spanish was. As I was watching that video, primarily from the perspective of a language learner trying to emulate that level of ease in the language, it hit me that their success in that situation was not just a result of knowing vocabulary and grammar, but of their ability to converse in general. And as an anxious perfectionist, I thought about how I would have trouble going around making lighthearted conversation like that with total strangers in English. I started to reflect on the ways that my perfectionism and anxiety could be impacting how I was approaching learning Spanish, and I realized that beyond even just my communicative abilities, my personality was shaping how I perceived my progress in the first place, and as a result, how I described it to others. In general, you should treat people's self-reported language abilities with a grain of salt. From the Dunning-Kruger effect and the fact that people have different goals, to the ambiguity of the words we use to describe language ability in the first place, people's self-reporting of their abilities is usually pretty unreliable. When it comes to something as abstract and complex as language, self-descriptions often give you a lot more insight into how a person is and how they view themselves than they do into a person's objective language abilities. A shy and insecure introvert is probably going to describe their language abilities differently than a super high energy, make friends with a room full of total strangers extrovert, even if they are both objectively at the same level. And I feel like that's what's happening a lot of the time when I read language learning update posts from people who have spent around the same time as each other using similar methods but report drastically different results. For instance, on the Dreaming Spanish subreddit, there will be some 1,000-hour update posts where people say they can have conversations no problem, while others say they can't speak. And some will say they can watch pretty much anything, while others will be much more reserved, highlighting specific things that they still have trouble watching. It seems that some people focus on what they can do and what they do understand, while others focus on what they can't do and what they don't yet understand. Recognizing the role that personality and self-image plays is important because most people who are learning a new language are not taking language exams that independently evaluate us, so all we have are our self-evaluations. And when we're trying to learn how to learn a language and research the best methods, apps, and courses, we are often forced to rely on the self-evaluations of others. Being consciously aware of this dynamic is really important for a few reasons. First, knowing that our personality impacts how we view and describe our own progress allows us to better moderate ourselves. I know that I tend to be on the more anxious and perfectionist side of things, and so when I feel frustrated at not knowing a certain word or saying something incorrectly, I try to actively force myself to take a step back and realize that I have a tendency to focus on the mistakes rather than what I did correctly. When I start to feel annoying sensation inside my brain telling me I'm failing, I remind myself that what I'm feeling is not an objective reflection of my language ability, but a product of that anxiety and perfectionism. Another reason it's really important that we consciously recognize that our personality is impacting our perception is because this can help us more critically engage with other people's self-evaluations. If you're an anxious perfectionist with efficiency maxing tendencies and aren't mindful of the fact that not everyone else is, reading Reddit update posts from human golden retrievers talking about how great they're doing is going to make you feel like giving up. I have read so many posts on various language learning subreddits with people asking why they aren't experiencing the same progress that other people seem to be. And I would bet that a lot of that is not actually a product of drastically different language abilities. If you know you're a really anxious person or a perfectionist, you will save yourself a lot of stress if you are mindful of that fact when you read through people's update posts or watch conversation practice videos. Because you will know that when you see someone expressing a lot of worry that they're not progressing, or saying that they can't speak despite X hours, or saying they've been learning Spanish for 5 months and can speak with people no problem, that you're getting a lot more insight into how each of those people are and how they view themselves than you are into their actual objective language abilities. If I can help stop someone from giving up because they don't feel like they're progressing fast enough, or stop someone from imposter syndroming themselves into never claiming fluency because they make a mistake here and there or can't understand a native speaker's rapid-fire answer in a drunk street interview, I'll be happy. So beyond just being aware of the fact that my personality is impacting my perception, which absolutely helps, here are the top 3 tips that I've been using to make learning Spanish easier while navigating anxiety and perfectionism. The first tip is to pretend you're someone else. It's pretty common for people who speak multiple languages to report feeling like they have different personalities in each of those languages, and some studies have come to the same conclusion. Whether it's due to the placebo effect or a translation discrepancy, I found it pretty helpful to lean into the idea that English me and Spanish me are 2 different people. I know it sounds weird, but by pretending that Spanish me is an extroverted, confident, and talkative person, I found it easier to make conversation in situations I normally wouldn't. While I think part of it is just the extra push of motivation I feel to try to make use of my Spanish and get the dopamine rush of a positive reaction when someone compliments me, each time I have one of those interactions, it adds legitimacy to the idea that Spanish me is a conversational and outgoing person. The second tip is to try to build independent evaluation into your learning journey. If you are someone that is constantly focusing on the negative side of things or feels like you're not progressing, take steps to make your progress tangible. Schedule a monthly tutoring session with a tutor and record it if they're cool with that. They will be able to more objectively evaluate you, and having the recordings from the past sessions will make it easy for you to notice your progress over time. And the final tip is to consciously think about how you feel when you interact with people who are learning your native language. Do you judge them harshly? Do you pinpoint every mistake they make and dwell on it? Do you think they're a failure? If you're a nice person, no, you don't. When I realized that I was judging myself way more harshly than I was judging other people, it made it a lot easier for me to brush off my mistakes and keep learning.